Hello, and thank you so much for being with us today and talking about ASRA with Mind Your Mind. So we just want to start off by getting to know the both of you a little bit. Can you tell us about yourselves and potentially your team or your partnership?
Sure, let Manvinder start.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much for having us, Simran. I'm Manvinder. I'm one of the co-leads or co-founders of ASRA, the Punjabi Alcohol Resource. So with Bavenjit, we work to promote and create resources for Punjabi families trying to navigate problems with alcohol. In my life, I guess outside of ASRA, I am a Master of Social Work student at the University of Toronto. I'm just finishing, or actually, I guess I just finished up my first year. Yeah, and I'm just finishing up my practicum as well. And I'm interested in understanding the relationship between Punjabi identity and culture and religion and how it relates to problems with alcohol.
Amazing. And congrats on wrapping up your first year. So exciting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Manvinder. And yes, congrats on finishing that year. So I'm Bavenjit. I'm from Vancouver, BC. And like Manvinder said, we're both partners on co-leading ASRA, which she's already explained a bit about. So I won't go into that again. And we're lucky to be supported by lots of other team members as well who help us with our initiatives, which has been such great support and really why the project's taken off to where it's been. Outside of doing ASRA things, I'm a medical student at UBC and I'm just finishing up my fourth year. So that's pretty exciting. And I will be starting residency hopefully in family medicine in this coming July. So that's kind of me outside of the ASRA world. And also it's kind of the reason I got involved in ASRA, which I think we'll chat about later. So
Amazing. Good for you. That's very exciting too. Congratulations on almost being done. Yeah. Okay, so I want to know what inspired the both of you to actually create ASRA. Like, how did you come together? What prompted it? How did it come to be?
Yeah, I'm happy to start us off. Yeah, so I think it was definitely prompted by COVID. Um, I think the ability, I'm in Toronto, Bavenjit's in Vancouver. We're like on opposite ends of the country almost. So I think it would have been impossible in like a pre-COVID world for us to like come together and do this work. So I was actually just finishing up my Master of Arts degree in religious studies, and I was also hosting some community conversations in Hamilton, Ontario, in person back in like 2018, beginning of 2019. And then I was supposed to be in Vancouver or like in the British Columbia area for the summer of 2020, but the pandemic hit. And Bavenjit and I had already been in conversation about perhaps having a community conversation in British Columbia. And Bavenjit was actually already working with some members of our current team on the website. So I was kind of doing my work in Ontario, Bavenjit was doing her work in British Columbia. We came together over Zoom and we're like, we're doing the same work. We're interested in having the same conversations and addressing the same problems. So why can't we just do this work together? So that's where we came together and yeah, I guess came up with like the name ASRA and started doing this work, I guess, in a more yeah, collaborative way.
Awesome.
yeah, I'll just like pick up off that. So definitely COVID was a blessing because a lot of the ways like our whole team is made up of like me and Manvinder, like Toronto, Vancouver, then Alberta,
Oh
and like
gosh.
more people in Toronto. And so it's just been so amazing that we've been able to be working with people across Canada, which like, yeah, pre-COVID times wouldn't have been like a reality because we would have just thought it was not possible. And so it's been really, really amazing. Our team is super diverse and that part is great. So like Nunda was saying, so her and I kind of connected early 2020 and then things rolled out of there creating ASTA. And before Minwinder and I had connected. So I was interested kind of in, so I was in the healthcare field and I was trying to help people I knew with alcohol issues in the Punjabi community. And as I was helping them, I realized like there was nowhere to go. Like I was like, I'm educated, I'm in the healthcare system, like I should be able to find like that resources I need for my loved ones. And I was struggling so hard and becoming so frustrated that instead of actually getting help, it was more like ostracizing because no one understood like cultural nuances and no one understood like how to approach a patient from that perspective. So when I realized that, I was like, hey, we need to do something about it. There's just this huge gap between there are resources somewhere, and then there's this whole community that needs the resources, but we're really not connecting the two. And so how can we fix that? So what I ended up doing was like connecting with a physician who works in Vancouver, BC, and specifically in South Asian addictions, and was like, hey, let's chat. Like, what can we do here? And she was amazing. And like out of that was born a whole kind of conversation about creating a resource. Like, let's collate all of the things that actually exist in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland that have Punjabi supports that people can seek. Like, put the information into Punjabi so people can access it. And so we like did this like needs assessment of the community where we like found out people were like not like 45% of people are not seeking help because they were like not sure where to go because there was such a issue with acknowledging that there was a problem in the community. And so out of that needs assessment was born like ASRA, the website, where we kind of not only put in educational information about like what is addiction, how do you even approach helping people with addiction, and all the way to like what are Punjabi counselors in the area, what are like group counseling sessions you can get, what are medical clinics you can access. So that kind of came together in the form of the website that we currently have, which we are working on expanding away from just BC, but that's kind of where that started.
Amazing. Yeah, what an incredible way to bridge the gap. And especially you two, like I can tell there's very strong partnerships. So I imagine that it's been a lot of like community work, but also like bond building between your team. That's really cool. Yeah. Okay, so this question is kind of like going off what you just said, but what has the reception been like from the Punjabi community that you're serving? So like, what have people said about ASRA? Like, have you gotten any, I guess, like, have you felt out the community in the sense like how it's helping or what you're doing or how people are using the resource? Does that make sense? Yeah.
I'll let you go, Manvinder, because you do a lot of social media stuff too. So I feel like and I'll jump in.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, the reception has been like overwhelmingly positive. I think so. We also host monthly conversations that are facilitated by members of our team, and those are usually quite well attended by individuals like ages 18 to 40. And we focus on different themes around problems with alcohol in Punjabi communities. And oftentimes it's individuals who are impacted by a loved one's problem with alcohol as opposed to the person who is experiencing the challenge themselves. And that's a decision we made because being client facing, I think we all wanted the people who do that job to be professionals. So I guess, yeah, like as we're on our academic journeys, perhaps one day we could become those people. But I think even acknowledging that piece of people who are impacted by a loved one's problem with alcohol, those were also the types of people who were coming to us, who were interested in our work, who wanted to have these conversations. Because like Bavenjit said, oftentimes individuals haven't, I guess, reached that acceptance of their problem. And I think that's where the website comes in around the awareness piece, like what does a problem with alcohol even look like? So yeah, I think our website I know gets quite a bit of traction, and I think that's because it is kind of removed from a professional or from a person. So you're able to just navigate that website in a language that you're comfortable with without having to kind of divulge that you have a problem with alcohol or you might have a problem with alcohol. So I think that's quite helpful. Recently, we received a really kind message about how someone had been sharing our like Instagram graphics with her brother and how he was like thinking about changing his relationship to alcohol. And that really was like such a kind message. Like we're just out here like posting our graphics, trying to increase like awareness around what our problem with alcohol looks like, resources that are available. And it's so great that these resources are being shared within the community. And yeah, I guess they are having some sort of tangible impact, which is very lovely to see.
Yeah, and I imagine there's also like some generational differences as well. So having social media plus a website is beneficial in that way. And I love that the website's in Punjabi because like what better way to actually reach people than to have it in a language that's understood. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Bavenjit. I just cut in a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's a really good point because one of our original kind of questions when we began was like, who is our audience and how do we kind of cater what we're doing to that audience? And that we really purposefully were like, we understand there's kind of a disconnect. Like there's the people who are our age who will like access Instagram and they'll access like our infographics. And then there's the people who are our parents' age who also need this support, who aren't going to be getting it from Instagram and stuff, and realizing like Facebook was a medium they would use and Punjabi is more of a medium they would want. And so like it was very intentional to have things in both languages so that we could try and kind of garner interest from both groups of people. So that was, but that's been a positive thing. I think one of the things we can work on is trying to promote it more for like our parents' generation and figuring out how to engage with them more. It's definitely a step that we can take, but I won't like rehash what Manvinder said, but it's just like, as soon as we had created, like I remember as soon as we launched and like kind of put it out there, it was just like so many messages of being like, oh my God, this conversation has been so missing from our community for so long. And like, we're just so happy that someone's talking about it and like bringing it out into the air so that it's not this like taboo subject we just kind of pretend doesn't exist, but fully exists in so many people's lives. So I just remember that being like such a positive moment at the beginning, realizing people want this and like they're excited to talk about this. And so in that way, it's been really great.
Incredible. I guess this kind of leads into it as well, but what are some of the highlights, I guess, you've experienced this is like pretty new, but I guess over the past couple of months, and what have some of the challenges been? So what are some of the things that you're still navigating, or like, I guess, like feedback that you weren't expecting or didn't really see coming?
Yeah, maybe Bavenjit, you can start us off this
Sure.
one.
Yeah. We can start off with some of the like challenges for sure. Like I think one of the things we're in the talks about right now is expanding our like website and resource. We've had so many people reach out from like all cities in Canada, like Edmonton to Toronto, even people in the States. And so you've been, you're sitting here like, oh, we have resources very specifically location based for some things, but we also have our educational resources that are like accessible no matter where you live. But one of the challenges now really is like growing and being like, how do we make these resources accessible not only in or listed only for Vancouver? So we've already made lists for different cities, but we need to now put them on the website. So like I think that's been one of the challenges. And
Which
I
is
think
like a great problem to have. Like the fact that people are like, I want it here is awesome.
exactly.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
It's definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, I think challenges wise, like I guess I don't know, Amanda, that you can talk about this too. I think there's always just like a fine balance of like we're obviously not perfect, like we're not advocating from like a health professional standpoint. Like we're trying to create community conversation and show people resources. So sometimes we need to like people come to us kind of very specifically, and we need to like always direct and say like these are the resources we have, but we're not like a helpline per se. Like this is a very specific kind of way we're trying to help. So that's always something we continue to navigate, and I think we'll continue to grow as we continue to become more professional in our fields and like grow what we're doing. So yeah, I don't know if there's another challenge that you can think of, Maninder.
I think that was a great summary. I think something that I'm also thinking about is creating like completely safe and non-judgmental spaces, especially when we're having our community conversations, and also because our community and like most communities are quite small. So it's like whether you're in like the medical community or whether you're in like the Punjabi community, both of those communities in themselves are quite small. So you're like bound to run into people. And I think when you're thinking about mental health challenges, something that comes up is not wanting other people to know perhaps that your family is struggling with a problem with alcohol. So I think Zoom sometimes allows for a little bit of like safety and anonymity. And of course, we do like our due diligence as we introduce our events to make sure that the space is as safe for everyone. But there's a chance that someone might know someone in the Zoom room. Yeah, there might be a chance that someone does say something, and it's really just that like maybe internalized shame or yeah, I think it's really a fear, if anything, about other people finding out. So like just creating spaces where people can participate in whichever way they feel comfortable, where like all individuals, no matter their like gender identities or their sexualities, are invited into our space, and we try to make sure that those spaces are as safe and as comfortable as possible for everyone. But of course, I think something that maybe like I'm navigating, we talk about a lot is making a space completely safe, and how that's not like accepting that it's not really possible, that not everyone that needs that space will feel welcome or invited, but it's trying your best to make it feel as fostering a super safe environment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, Did you want to talk about highlights, or is now a good time for me to ask another question?
I
That's
guess
kind of
we did
related.
talk. I mean, are we negative people? We're not, I promise.
We're like
Well, even
very
your
self-critical.
challenges are positive. So I mean, like they come from a positive place. So no, you are not.
I know we've chatted a bit about them. I don't know if there's more we want to highlight. I think it's just like for me, the biggest highlight has really been the like engagement that we get every time we put something out, and like seeing how interested people are in having those conversations and being involved. And for me, that's been kind of like one of the greatest highlights that's come out of this. And then the highlight is always checking how many people are coming to the website and seeing if it's actually being used. And you're like, yes, like people are coming here, and that's really nice too. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything in there.
Yeah, I would just say like learning together. I really like love everyone on our team. They're so kind. They're like, I think I learn a lot from everyone else because we all come from such interdisciplinary fields. Like, although, yeah, like Bavenjit comes from medicine, I come from social work, I have a religious studies background. We have individuals from film, from marketing, from who else? I'm blanking. From like women and gender studies, from political science. So it's like a really like robust team. So I think, yeah, learning from everyone and together has been really, really helpful. And yeah, definitely a positive.
Amazing. Yeah, and it shows that you're a well-rounded team and have thought about a lot of the nuances that comes with this work, or that come with this work. I actually want to ask, kind of going into nuances, one of the things that I noticed is like in the mental health field, mental health and addiction are always grouped together. So it's like mental health and addiction, mental health and addiction. And in this interview and on the website, both of you talked about mental health, but you don't directly say addiction. So it's always problems with alcohol when you discuss it with ASRA. Is there a reason for that, or a reason that you don't use the word addiction in your resource?
We do use the word addiction. The
Okay.
word that we try to steer away from is alcoholism, or referring to someone as an alcoholic, because I think that invokes like the biomedical model that it is something that someone is born with, that it is intrinsic to like their being, to their very core, that is like a part of their identity, as opposed to someone who struggles with alcohol, has a challenging relationship with alcohol, a problem with alcohol. Like that is a facet of their identity, but they are like a robust person. I think we do use addiction because if we are, yeah, I guess thinking about the spectrum of substance use, someone might have no use, someone might have like non-problematic use, and then there's problematic use, and then it can shift to addiction or dependence when someone does have a dependency on alcohol. So that's where the term addiction does get invoked. But I think, yeah, I like to use problems with alcohol because it illuminates like the various relationships that you could have with alcohol that are negatively impacting your life. And it's not just reduced to alcoholism only, because I think when someone thinks they might have a problem, they're like, well, I'm not an alcoholic. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a problem with alcohol. So yeah, I think that's where that comes from. I don't know if Bavenjit has anything to add.
I'll add on to that because I think, Simran, like part of your question is, like there is also its own connotation to the word addiction, and some people just really are hesitant to say they have an addiction because they especially in the Punjabi community associate that with like drug use, and they don't classify alcohol as a drug. And so when you say you have an addiction, they're like, well, I'm not an Amelie, like that's not who I am, like that's the people who use drugs. And I mean, there's a whole other nuanced conversation about how interrelated all these things are, but like, I do know that I've thought about that in the ways that, like, especially when we're talking about it in the Punjabi context, like, how do we want to highlight what we're talking about? And I think one of the things we've tried to do is instead of kind of just saying addiction, we'll try and like talk about what you would notice if there's an addiction, right? Like, if you need to drink every day, if it's what you need to go to sleep, if it's what you think about in the morning, like, we're alluding to the fact that you have addiction, but maybe not specifically, or we're trying to explain what addiction means. So it's like you're not so scared of that word. It's like, okay, well, what it means is X, Y, and Z. So like maybe you do, but like let's approach it in kind of a warm and helpful way instead of that like stigmatized way that often people don't want to associate with. So I do think it's like often a fine balance of like what words do we use when we talk about this work, because some of the words are alienating instead of bringing people in, and you need to be like aware of where that happens. So it's always this like kind of conscious use of certain words in certain spaces.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. Thank you for answering that. This next question is a little bit of a mouthful for me, but I want to make sure I hit every point. So I'm just going to read it because I do have it written down. But as you both know, the farmers' protests have been going on in India for quite some time now. And I think like the spirit of resistance is felt in the Sikh and Punjabi diasporas, like in Canada and all over the world. So I just wanted to kind of know, like, have the protests influenced your work specifically with ASRA, or have you been seeing any trends or patterns, I guess, in regards to mental health, problems with alcohol, we could say addiction, and how they're linked to the farmers' protests? I know it's a loaded question. It's heavy, so it takes some time if you need to. Yeah.
I wonder if you want to chat about that broken Punjabi we had I think it was in December. I think that's a good kind of leeway into this question.
Yeah. So so our community conversations happen monthly under like the umbrella title Broken Punjabi. And in December when we were doing our planning, it didn't feel like there was a need that was being met, and that was having a conversation with community members, with Punjabi community members about the farmer protests. So as we were like having a conversation about what our theme for December should be, the farmers protest was of course at the forefront of everyone's mind. And I was living at home at the time, and it was like all my mom could talk about. And I could see that perhaps she didn't have some of the tools that I had in understanding like the mental health implications of like consuming that much content and like seeing that much tragedy, and kind of that like the mental health toll that it was taking on her. So we wanted to have a community conversation both about like coming together as a community and thinking about the farmers protests and what our role as members of the diaspora in that is, but we also wanted to find like tangible resources that we could share with our family members as they're like hyper consuming like WhatsApp videos, and like that is having a toll on your psyche. Perhaps it's like invoking like thoughts like previous memories. So we really we wanted to address both of those concerns. So we did have an event, a community conversation with some members of the community. And I guess apart from that conversation that we've had, I think something that I'm noticing is like the contextualization of mental health issues. So I think a lot of people are talking about the farmer protests in conjunction with mental health, and then substance use and the high rates of suicide by farmers globally. So I think in that they're understanding like the role that indebtedness or policies or politics and history plays in all of that. So I think in some ways, mental health challenges are being contextualized, and they're not just, I guess, being simply seen as someone who is unable to communicate their emotions or feelings or have a conversation. And I think there's like a better, more robust understanding of the challenges that someone might face when they do have a problem with substances.
For sure.
I don't know if I have too much more to add. I think that's like a very good kind of like that relatable, like kind of a relatable link to the work we do. And I think perhaps I'll just quickly like, you talked about how we had that conversation in December trying to like chat about the farmers protest, but like you had it hit on a really important point, which is like we do a lot of conversation about circles of care and like how we think of care, and really what we talk about there is like care is not only about yourself but the people around you, and that goes to the farmers protest. It's like, how do we consume what we're seeing, and then how do we take care of ourselves and the people who are around us who are consuming it? And when we do all our work, a lot of it is around a lot of it is centered around that as well, where it's like, okay, how do we help the person who's struggling with alcohol, and then how do we support ourselves when we're dealing with that, or the people we love who are dealing with that? And so there's always this like circle of care, and everything is not just about yourself, but it's about the ways you're connected to people around you. And for us, like connected to ourselves here in the diaspora, to the farmers protest, like all of these things play a role on like your like boundaries, like self-care and mental health and all that put together.
For sure. And even that may not be the language that you use when you speak with other people, but I guess it's language that we all know because we are in the mental health realm. But I appreciate that you're finding ways to communicate those things, even though it might not be with those specific words. Like, it's amazing. Yeah. Okay, I want to chat all day, and I'm very, very interested in ASRA, and you both have been incredible in answering these questions and explaining your work. But I am mindful of your time and of the length of this interview. So I guess on that note, is there anything else that you want people to know about ASRA, or any like final thoughts you have, or anything that you have coming up that you maybe want to like tell people about? Yeah.
Yeah, if individuals want to connect with us, they can send us an email at contact@asranow.ca. Our website is also asranow.ca. If folks want to learn more about addictions, withdrawal, harm reduction, the biology of addiction, it's available in both English and Punjabi. We do hold, like I said, monthly community conversations. Our next one will be the second part in a 3-part series on grief. And that series is ending in a writing workshop in May, which will hopefully be compiled together for like a nice zine, which we can maybe distribute. But yeah, if folks are interested in that conversation, yeah, and if people want to connect in any way, they're also welcome to send us messages on social media. I think on most platforms we're at asra.now. So,
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, I won't say too much more to that, but it's just anybody who wants to connect with us, please do. And Manvinder has mentioned all of their platforms, and so yeah, that's kind of the best way to get in contact. And we're always willing and happy to talk with like one of our biggest things is like we don't have like we only do this like type of work. Like if you have an idea centered around alcohol and Punjabi spaces, like come to us. We love to work with you and try and like make things real and support you in any way we can. So it really is open and a space where you want kind of everybody who is interested in this work to come together. So always feel free to message us. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks so much. So 2 more questions, actually. This is one that I meant to ask at the beginning. I totally forgot about. So why ASRA? Like, why the name? How'd you come up with it? What does it mean? Is it an acronym? Like, yeah, just tell me a little bit about it.
Bavenjit?
It's a really good question. We actually took a long time coming up with this because you know that I think a lot and we didn't need to think that much. But you know, it really was born out of we wanted a word that showed like people support, and Asra in Punjabi means support. And so we really kind of teetered across like what we wanted to call it. Like, was it just going to be called a resource? Like, how did we want to frame this for our community? And when we came across the word Asra to us, it felt just so fitting that it was like a word that invokes like the sense of hope, the sense of support. And that's what you want people to feel when they come to ASRA's website or ASRA's pages and interact with any of the work we do. And so that's how we kind of settled on the name for that. I won't go into like any more of the details on the thought process, but like that's really what it ended at. Yeah.
No, that's beautiful. I honestly, like, full disclosure, I thought it was an acronym. And then when you said it at the beginning, I was like, no, 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 it's not an acronym. There's something more there. So I just wanted you to say it in this interview. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, just to end on kind of a lighter note, more about you two. What have you both been doing to keep well during the pandemic? Like, how have you been taking care of yourself? What's new? What's new with self-care? Yeah.
What's all new and not new because it's been like a year and we're still kind
True.
of
Yeah. 12 months now. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I think for me, like things have been okay. Like it's interesting. I find how quickly humans adapt to like a new world. Like it's been a year of us living in this kind of new world, and we've kind of found our footing and what's okay for us and how we can navigate it. I think for me, it's just a lot of like outdoor time. I love being outdoors. The weather's getting warmer. I'm pretty excited about that. Try and go on a few hikes, go on some walks when I can, and then at the really beginning, there was a lot of baking, but that really stopped pretty soon
that
after.
face, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think for me, it's just like staying connected with people. Like whether it's weird how like common like Zoom hangouts are now. Like me and my friends are like, want to hop on Zoom, which is like unheard of a year ago, and now it's just like this like very easy thing to do. So I think just things like that and being outdoors for me is like what keeps me sane.
Yeah, and outdoors where you are is beautiful too. Like I can only imagine. But yeah, I'm looking at concrete, but like I feel like it'd be nice and yeah. No, that's awesome. I've been there. What about you?
Yeah, whenever we have team meetings, like the sun is just pouring into Bavenjit's room, and we're all like in our like
You're
very
like, it's
dreary.
7 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah,
Why?
exactly. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think the outdoors, like just I live downtown Toronto, so there's not like too much scenery apart from the concrete buildings. But yeah, I do like taking a walk to the park. I'm a big coffee fan, and I just moved downtown. I'm actually from Winnipeg. So I've been in Ontario for a while, but just in Toronto since January. So I like finding new coffee shops, walking to new coffee shops. And on Fridays, I usually try to like order takeout. Like that's my takeout day, and it kind of like signifies the weekend, because I feel like time can feel like very much an illusion. So I'm like, I don't know what day it is, like what time of the day it is. So I feel like Fridays, I have my takeout. I'm like, okay, this is like a mark for the weekend. So that's been really helpful in like, yeah, my self-care routine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and having routines, as you said, Bavenjit, in a new world is important because it does signify a type of normal. So that's awesome. Well, I think this takes us to the end of our time, but thank you so much for being here and for interviewing for Mind Your Mind. It's been awesome to talk about ASRA, and I'm so excited to see the places it goes. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It was a really great conversation, and the work you guys are doing is amazing too. So we're just thankful to be a part of it and to be able to chat.